Hi, guys.
Hey,
Hi, Jeffrey.
good to see you.
Awesome. Well, I have written these some questions down here, so I might be referencing them. I don't usually do that, so bear with me. But I just got to say, without even looking at these questions, Eyes Without a Face is one of my favorite songs, and it's one of the songs that really has inspired Poolside since the origin of the band. It's uniquely, and I actually didn't know a lot about your total, how you guys got your sound, which I'm going to ask about, but you kind of incorporate dance, new wave, rock, and punk, which is all of my influences. And I totally, that's why I'm like, oh, the more I've learned about you guys over the last few months, I'm like, oh, no shit. No wonder I love you guys so much. So, in particular, this song really is awesome. So, thank you for the opportunity for letting me work on it. I appreciate it.
Great.
Yes, it was a bit like we weren't going to sort of culturally misappropriate like reggae or rap really, but at the same time, if we could put something that had influences like that into the music, we did. So with this song, yeah, reggae, we had the we had the really low bass with the really highs, so we had that kind of that dimension that's in reggae really with this song. And we actually tried a million bass players, and yeah, we tried everybody in the world. Eventually, the guy who's the bass player on Broadway, Dreamgirls, Sal Cuevas, just nailed it. And it was, but that's kind of a very much an influence of it was that bass line being so like it was. And yeah, it's fantastic. The Poolside, they got that dreamy quality. He's got the dreamy quality to it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that side out. And actually, I wasn't even going to bring up the reggae thing, but that's once I got your stems and I loaded it in, I'm like, holy shit, this is a reggae song. Like, I didn't like, and I didn't like think you guys would be influenced by dub and reggae, but it's
Yeah, it's just
totally.
coming out of England. It was in the time of punk in the 70s. It was the other revolutionary music in a way that was
Yeah,
speaking openly about political change and stuff like that. So it wasn't just a musical style. It was also what they were saying spoke to punks. And then yeah, but I always loved dub reggae. So we used to put spins, and you got spins, and
yeah.
everything's floating as well. That's really Lee Scratch Perry and stuff. So it's great to hear that in a way the remix has carried on the feel of the original song and hasn't gone away from that. In fact, you've it's great. It's really lovely.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, that was actually one of the challenges I wasn't expecting because I always loved the song. And then once I got working on it, I was like, man, it's hard to improve a song you love. And so I took it in a new direction. I don't know, improve, but it's hard to put a new spin on a song that already has a spin that you love so much. So, it was tricky, but I added a lot more sense. And then, yeah, I turned up the space echo a bunch. And yeah, and we're jumping around here, but yeah, Steve, I had to take out your guitar part because it was so iconic that with Billy's vocal and your guitar, it just sounded like the song with a couple little bits. So
I
it's
think, I think, yeah, I think it's great what you did. I think it's refreshing to hear somebody else's, view on it, and I'm sick of my guitar playing.
well, yeah. I mean, just speaking, it's a huge compliment because it's such a like thumbprint, or it's part of the fingerprints of the song that with it in there, it just seems so like, why am I bothering? So I put in a bunch more electronic
Yeah,
bits.
yeah, it's great what you did.
One of the things about your guitar playing, I'm actually somewhat new at guitar. So I've been getting into it, but you make complicated stuff sound easy. Is that something you try to do, or is that just your
Or make easy stuff sound complicated.
well? That's even better, maybe. But yeah, I really like your riffs and the way you play. It's just yeah, it sounds like when I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, I could. Wait a minute, that's hard. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think I think the thing is, and I think I have Billy to thank for a lot of this is, make the most out of the least. So make a statement out of something very simple sometimes, when we're guitar players by nature, because it's a skill based thing, they want to do all this stuff, and really it's you want to do things that are memorable, as hopefully as memorable as a melody or a and stick to what the inspiration of the song is. And I think that was always our guide for it.
Yeah, well done.
Though is that Steve has the ability, because he's listened to so many different forms of music, and in some ways or other has a way of mastering them, that I could call upon him to do anything and he would deliver, which gave me the freedom to go anywhere, and it gave me the freedom to try out.
Yeah.
Without a face. I don't know if I could have tried that if there wasn't someone like Steve Stevens. So, and Keith Forsey.
Yes. Yeah.
Because
Well,
Keith
with that,
well too was very much part of the kind of an electro idea somewhere.
Absolutely.
Rock. We were very influenced by electronic music as well,
yeah, that brings me literally to my next question, as I was going to ask about Keith Forsey, because I embarrassingly didn't know a lot about him until recently, and now I'm like, a lot of my favorite songs he's either played drums on or co-written.
Yeah, true.
And so how it seems like you three are like have a really good synergy with like him bringing about like the kind of Giorgio Moroder new wave thing. Billy, you've got the punk background. Steve, you've got the riffs. Is that how? Talk to me. How does it work? Like, is that how you built your sound, or how is Keith involved, or what? Talk to me about your sound, basically, if you can.
Yeah, I think we never had a battle plan, but
Okay.
as with Eyes Without a Face, I don't think we were quite sure what we had, but we liked it, but it was definitely we had to like kind of finesse it as it came along, and we were like, well, is it should it go on the record? And as it progressed, it got better and better, and then we kind of thought it was so good that it was undeniable. But there was never any, it's not like we sat down and went, well, we got to have a ballad or something. It was just this tune. I remember when we were in rehearsal, Billy always had lyrics he used to carry this backpack thing with all these lyrics and stuff. And I had a couple of chords and things. The chords are very basic. They're kind of 50s doo-wop chords. Mm-hmm. And as luck would have it, I was just tinkering around, I think, on a couple of chords, and Billy pulled out his legal pad and said, what's that? I think I might have something. And it just went from there, and it kept snowballing into something. And then I think finally the last element was that middle section. But we didn't. I think with all of our tunes, I remember always Billy and Keith would always have 32 bars in the middle of any song, because they were already thinking in terms of a remix. We didn't know what would go there, but we knew we had to have it so that we could have remixes and things.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
thinking a little bit about that the song would have more uses than just that. The basic track you get on an album or whatever, the single. No, it had all these different versions of that. That's a little bit to do with also the reggae thing of, they take the A side is the song, B side is the dub version, they kind of messed about with electronically. They've taken it and just torn it apart and made it crazy, like it's from Mars. So there was a little bit of that thinking in what we were doing. And then, as you say, Keith came from the Giorgio Moroder world as well as rock. So he had this synergy of rock and a bit of technology. And of course, he was a master with a drum machine where he gave it his feel. So we know, even if we used a drum machine, it had Keith Forsey's feel, because he had this incredible feel.
Yeah, it really, you guys make an electronic drum track sound super swingy. It's cool. It's impressive.
And I think the remix stays with that feel.
Absolutely.
That's it didn't, it goes with that. It's got the Forsey feel, even though.
I kept the groove. I took out some of the kicks and some kind of stripped it back, so it's a little more 4 on the floor, but it's still the feel. You got a lot of cool percussion in there. I'm a huge fan of the song, and now that I've learned more about your guys' production and your team, I'm just like huge fan. I don't want to fan out too much in this interview, but I want to ask about the middle 8 or 32 bar thing. So it seems like you've got a crazy guitar riff solo, and Billy, you're almost like rapping. Is that inspired by the New York kind of rap scene, like Blondie and like Grandmaster Flash, or?
Yes, Because when I got to I moved to America in '81, March of '81, and basically the kids who were like listening to rap, they were coming from Brooklyn or wherever, coming into New York now, and breakdancing and stuff on the street to boom boxes. So it was right there, and we were seeing people like Grandmaster Flash at the Ritz and whatever, African Bambaataa. So it was very much what was going on, and yeah, it was just a sort of a, like I say, we didn't want to culturally misappropriate anything. We even thinking that a little bit back then. We wanted to do it in our own way, and this was my way, sort of like tipping the hat. At the same time, I'm likening it just as much to Lou Reed when his speaking
Yeah.
way,
Walk on the Wild Side. Okay.
as what's going on in the hip hop world, sort of thing. But it's just a bit of a tip of the hat. But that was the fun, I think, nature of the song. That it does have these. It's touching on all these different styles, and then that's what was going on. So it's got a sort of a roadmap or a picture of the '80s right there in sonic, sonic sound.
Yeah. Well said. Because it's really stood the test of time. In a lot of ways, that some stuff you just hear and it's like so '80s, and then your stuff could come out. That song could come out today, and it would be a masterpiece. So.
Yeah, Trevor Charles is asking about the French backgrounds. Is that?
Yeah.
It was the title of it was the title of a movie, Les Yeux Sans Visage, a horror movie where this surgeon was trying to repair. I think it was it's either his wife or his daughter's face. She'd had a terrible accident, so he was killing other women and then grafting skin onto her face, so she was like an eyes with no face. But took that title and used it for the song, and yeah, we used it as a backing vocal, which actually was sung by my girlfriend at the time, Perry Lister. So that's the French backgrounds. Is like, yeah, that's the Eyes Without a Face in French. That was the title of this new wave, early '60s French horror movie.
Yeah, it's a real haunting vocal, which kind of fits the name of the track. So
yeah, it was going with the slight bit of a horror. We had a little bit of that in things like White Wedding. There was a touch in the video, and I was sticking with this slightly dark. Instead of writing a love song, I wrote a sort of an anti-love.
Right, it's the other side of the coin of love.
Yeah.
And what was it like recording at Electric Ladyland? I mean, it's such a iconic place. Was it at the time? Did you know it was special, or was that just like where you went to go record?
Well, I think we deliberately picked it because, if we could record there, we just knew all the great records that had come out of there and the just history of it. And also it was very near to where we lived.
True.
I could walk 5 minutes, I was there. So, because I lived at Sheridan Square, so I could be at 8th Street in a second. So it was
10
also
minutes,
really, really close by.
Yeah.
There's a right desk, didn't it? Had a Neve desk or something.
Yeah, there's a movie theater next to it that I used to go to. I used to skip school in high school and go with my friends, and you could go watch rock and roll movies. And it was right next door to Electric Lady, and I thought, one day, if ever, I could not even record there, but they would let me in. Because it's so legendary that having Hendrix build that studio, and so to be in there, and then obviously we found Dave Whitman, the engineer who worked with us there, and Mike Frondelli, and they had a great staff of people, and it was a cool, it's a great vibe in there as well. It's a bit of a party. I remember every Friday or something, we'd have a little bit of a listening party, and it was just great to hang out there, and we actually did get work done.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you meet any crazy legendary people there, or any crazy characters?
No, but I did. I was remembering back when because we were in rehearsal. We did a little bit of pre-production for the record. That little rehearsal studio it was on like fourth.
Yeah.
Something. And I remember we were there, and I went waiting for the elevator, and the elevator opened, and Miles Davis walked out, and I thought, wow, we're in we're in good company here. So it was all these little signs that we were onto something,
Yeah.
Definitely were. Well, I've got a question directly for you, Steve. So I understand you do some of the programming and the keyboards on some of the Billy Idol stuff. Is that accurate, or is that
Not on this record.
okay?
Not on this record. I mean, the technology was so new. I didn't know anything about it. Obviously, Keith knew the
So that was
Lindrum,
all
but
Keith then.
yeah, and I can't remember. I don't know if you remember, Billy, who played keyboards on this. I don't
Well,
remember.
he died soon.
Oh wow.
And he played on like things like White, the first solo album, I think, White Wedding,
Okay,
and then he also played on and stuff. And then I think he died soon after. Yeah, I can never remember.
right. I can't. Yeah, because it was.
Right.
It was hard. You know, there wasn't that many people that really were on the cutting edge of stuff.
Right.
You know, I mean, it took us. We were actually recording the record before we found Tommy Price,
Yeah,
because drummers couldn't play to click tracks back then.
Yeah.
And finally, Tommy was in the same studio, and we kind of, hey, that guy sounds good.
And that was the drummer.
Yeah, obviously this is
Yeah.
Lindrum on this, but things like
Okay.
Rebel Yell is Tommy Price.
I
Yeah,
thought Tommy Price. Yeah, it's Lindrum on Eyes Without a Face on the record.
Flesh for Fantasy, Eyes Out of Face. I think
It's
three.
Keith Forsey playing a Lindrum, so it's not really just a Lindrum. It's really
Uh,
feel, and
Right.
he had a very he's on all those Donna Summer records and everything.
Yeah.
Feel, he had definite feel, could control the drum machine with his feel. It was really actually exciting. Him programming the drum machine was super exciting because you saw the feel come together.
Yeah, that's no small task to get a good feel from a drum machine.
That's right.
So
It's a basic.
bravo to Keith. And so you guys just did something at the Super Bowl with Miley Cyrus. Like I didn't expect that coming. How did that come about? How was it to be playing again? I mean, it's been a pandemic, so it's probably your first show, I guess, in a while. Like, what was that all? What was that like?
Yeah, it was great. Actually, it was fantastic. It was great to be back on stage and everything. And yeah, I've got this really good song with Miley, Night Crawling, on her Plastic Hearts. So yeah, we did do a tiny bit of Night Crawling and a little bit of White Wedding. So it was fun, and it was the people in the audience were all first time responders, or they'd worked. They were health workers, and they'd all been vaccinated, and they all wore masks, and so it was a nice thing to be able to do that performance. But yeah, after the last performance we did was 11 months ago, so it was pretty
Yeah.
fun. It was beautiful to get back on stage, and then have Steve there too was fantastic. And we could play White Wedding to the Super Bowl audience as well as a Night Crawling. Was fantastic.
Yeah, it was super cool. I watched the replay of it, and yeah, I was so excited when Steve came out on guitar. Like I saw you doing your thing, Billy, and then I was like, "Oh, damn, you got the whole gang." So I guess just one last question is kind of back to the first question, but just because I'm personally curious. Your sound in general sounds like you're kind of going from the gut, like you didn't have like this master plan or whatever, but your influences are really broad. And it seems like Keith was kind of a secret weapon, or at least a big piece of the direction. Or did you guys like, how did it come about? Just because I think it's so good and it's really stood the test of time, that kind of like all the stuff you do.
Worked on Dancing with Myself on the Gen X album. That very much, the song itself and the way Keith produced it, it really did sort of lay down a bit of a template for what we were going for. That we were thinking a little bit out of the box, but that it was going to be dance music, but at the same time we were playing rock and roll. And somehow we were going to put all that together. And it was there when we did Dancing with Myself, and then we kept on extending what we were doing into different areas. And Eyes Without a Face was a look. It was an extension. Now we're doing a ballad which had a kind of thinking a little bit outside the box, because having that bit in the middle with Steve's guitar riff being that was such an incredible moment, and it was a little bit of a groundbreaking thing at that time.
Yeah.
Music,
I think
But I understand today in your mix why, if you left that in, it dominates the whole thing. You can't,
Yeah.
you had to do something there, and what you've done is I like it. So that's
Thanks. Yeah.
I think also, when before I met Billy, his manager sent me over the third Gen X record, and there was a song on there. By then, Dancing with Myself was being played in the clubs, and obviously I knew things like Ready, Steady, Go. But when I heard Revenge, which is the song on that record, A, I was surprised, and B, it kind of hints at some of these textures and things. I think, that kind of were like, oh, we can do these kind of textural guitar things, and we can kind of don't always have you can hit people with kind of, things that are a little bit softer and melancholy or whatever. So I think there's always been that element in Billy's music, and it was just a matter of like drawing on some of these influences and things. But it's always been there.
Yeah, well, it's really cool. I've been a big fan, and in particular, I don't know if you guys know exactly the origin story, but I got asked to do a remix for the Dancing with Yourself, the album with Dancing with Yourself, and I listened to the album and I was like, I don't really think I can do any of your songs justice because my stuff's kind of mellow and vibey. And then I was like, but I would love to do Eyes Without a Face. And then your team was like, well, you're out of luck because that's not on the record. And I was like, well, maybe one day, keep me in mind. And then eventually I think my management talked to your team again, and they're like, okay, give it a shot, kid. And then, yeah, everybody liked it. And now it was truly an honor. I not even joking. I was like nervous, like downloading. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the files from something that I just have loved for so long. So thank you so much for the
that's
cool
what
opportunity.
we're looking for in music, is a kind of excitement, the feeling of freedom it gives you, that you're going somewhere, you got something, you're in love with something. That's what it's all about. And it's been great. I'm glad we could work together during this time of COVID.
Right. Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's been a good time for virtual collabs and virtual conversations.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. Like, I'm honestly honored to do this. This was like really a dream come true for me, and I'm a big fan for a long time. And yeah, Steve, I love your guitar playing. I do have one more tiny question I want to throw at Steve, but sorry for being a bad interviewer. But no, I just love your sound. Is there gear? I would guess you're kind of a gearhead because most guitarists are. Is there any like pedals, or when you play live now, are you using the same gear you were using back then, or just do you have any like guitar advice for people like with gear, or anything you think about?
Yeah, I think now, I mean, it's really the same. It's basically amplifier designs. I have a signature amplifier that's copied after, a Marshall that came out in '67. So, and that's the thing with guitar. You want it to be real and you want it to be believable. So I think using vintage analog, tube amps and, good old, straight ahead guitars, you can always muck it up in the box, so to speak.
Right.
If you start with something that's kind of pure, you can always take it somewhere else. But if you're committing to something that's already diluted or something, you can't undo it. So I try and keep it as believable as keep the personality in it.
Okay, so are you using distortion like on the amp, or do you have a pedal, or you do that all after?
Oh, it's always different. I mean, the recordings we just did, it's whatever works and quick.
Fair enough.
Because you don't want to lose the idea. You don't want to be like, oh, wait a minute, let me do. And by the time you've mucked around with all this stuff, you're like, what's the idea? So, quickly and sometimes the sound doesn't really matter. It's the energy and the commitment behind it.
That is very true. Sometimes the shittiest take was the one you want to keep in there because it's got the feeling.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things on Rebel Yell that are just a little rock man, and Blue Highway is a rock man, and it was like, I want to replace it and stuff. And Billy and Keith were like, "No, it's great, man. Just don't worry about it."
Well, thanks again, guys, and it's a real inspiration. So
awesome.
Oh wait, do we have any questions from the chat? Because as you can tell, I'm somewhat new at this, but I'm hopefully doing okay. But we do have some questions that have come in. if you guys want to jump on these.
Yeah, the Untouchables. Yeah, it's one of the songs on the third Generation X Gen X album, and yeah, it was a bit of yeah, I was really thinking about my friends at school and maybe the early days of punk and just what had been going on and how, in a way, we were sort of disenfranchised youth on the scrap heap, but sort of looking for a way to go. And yeah, surely, yeah. When someone told me about it, because everything was the night in the late 70s, going into the 80s. Somehow about that you had power at night, maybe because we were meeting at night, and that's when some things coalesced. But yeah, it just meant, yeah, maybe our ideas, the way we feel, don't let the man or don't let your parents, whoever it is, tell you can't have those feelings, and that what you're thinking is great. And because we were thinking about punk rock and then where are we going to go with it, and what's our generation going to say, and so I was singing about that. Really, it was about all the youth movements, and but then about myself. Yeah, maybe something about us and our friends. Yeah, you reach a point where you're kind of a little bit untouchable in these kind of great moments when you're kind of actually achieving something.
Okay, that's cool.
You believe that? You believe anything? I'm just joking.
Looks like this one's for you, Steve. It's from Kit Kitten. I would love to know
Kit.
artists inspire Steve Stevens.
Oh man, there's such a great history of that instrument. It's everybody. I mean, from Scotty Moore to I mean, Jimi Hendrix, obviously, Eddie Van Halen, who we just lost. I'm a fan of the instrument, so I mean, it's and sometimes, a great thing that we were at Billy's birthday party once, and Sharon Osbourne was sitting there, and she said, the problem with you guitarists. I went, uh-oh, here we go. And she said, no, when you play something, you have to play something that makes a person who doesn't play the guitar want to pick it up and learn it. And sometimes guitar players forget that, but that's all like, oh yeah, when I heard Satisfaction or Can't Explain or something, that was what made me want to play guitar. And as you become proficient, sometimes you lose that. But I think any guitar player that's playing from the heart, Sylvain, or doesn't matter, it can be technical or anything, as long as it's from the heart and serving the song. That's the thing. You got it. The song is key, and what's the song about? How can I best move the song along? And that's if you do that, you'll be okay.
Great advice there. That's I couldn't agree more.
Yes, yeah, Promised Land. Yeah, I do like Promised Land. Chuck Berry, of course. Yeah, it's a fun song. I think we might have tried that in sound checks and stuff, because there's always a few songs you try to sound check. But yeah, it's a lovely idea.
Is Elvis a big influence on you, Billy?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, my sister really loved Elvis, and Elvis was, when I was young, he was already a little bit old, seemingly. But when I finally saw his 1956 performances on television, I saw them in chronological order, and you sort of saw him go from being the hillbilly cat to being the king of rock and roll in that year. And his performances have just been incredible on the Milton Berle show, whatever, just so I did really get into Elvis. But of course, we love people like Iggy and stuff, and Lou Reed, and we were getting into Bowie and Roxy Music. We were getting into all that stuff, really, in England.
Very cool stuff. Yeah. I've been thinking, when I was reading about you guys, I was like, especially you, Billy, who are like, I read you're a fan of the Sex Pistols early on, and I'm like, man, what's it like to be cool for so long? I know that's a dorky question.
Fans of music, that was the thing. That's what led us to the Sex Pistols in a way, was that we were huge fans of music, always looking for where are we going? Where is the music going? And then where's our age group going? And seeing the Pistols, and especially when they plugged in their new songs, when they suddenly did Pretty Vacant, because at first they were doing covers, and then you kind of went, well, these covers are great, but when they finally start to do their own numbers, and you went, wait a minute, what's this? And wait a minute, it's really good. And then the second song was Anarchy in the UK, and you go, this is the anthem for our generation. You go, oh my God, you know. Like, so it was like these eye-opening moments that music gave, the love of music gave you, you know, whether it was the Sex Pistols or it was one of the Beatles, I don't know, you know. It was these moments that they gave you, this love of music gave you, this kind of eye-opening thing into a world of freedom and choice, and oh God, it can all be yours somehow as well. You know. It's fun.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That was, I think, watching videos like yours, it was when I was like, oh, these guys are expressing themselves. They're like, you know, they're not all like chained up. Like I was a suburban youth, and I was like, I want to do that one day. So different scale, but it was definitely an inspiration for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're talking about. With, well, is there any more questions, Chris? Are we okay? We are wrapped, guys.
Great.
Thank you again. That was awesome, and hopefully we'll see each other in person one day.
Yeah, exactly. This is all
That-
over.
Okay, man. Well, take good care, Billy, Steve. Thank you again.
Great. Been a pleasure.
All right.
See you, Billy.
Bye, guys.